All right, welcome back to another edition of Bro2Bro. I'm here with my big brother Vince Clark,
What's up,
hanging out with the champ today.
champ?
We're gonna take a little twist. The champ, I'll give you the champ
Wow.
just for today. Just for today. We're gonna do a little twist of a conversation. I know a lot of people may know us as like business owners or entrepreneurs or whatever that conversation is, but we're gonna dive into the corporate world. You know what I'm saying? It may not be politically correct. Don't hold us to that, but we're gonna talk about these corporate jobs, what it takes to get them, how to maneuver, throughout them, and all that good stuff. But first, I want to define what a corporate job actually is, because going into this conversation, I wasn't sure. But a corporate job, by definition, is pretty obvious. It's any job that is within the confines of a corporation. What separates this is a job that may be just a single job, single business, no expansion, not multiple chains or whatever have it. This your mom and pop store. I don't know, I'm just thinking a barbershop, a little restaurant,
Small business.
something like that doesn't have a chain. Yeah, it doesn't have a chain of, different things that have to be held to the same standard. So when we're talking corporate, we're talking those jobs that are expanded across a region, the nation, a state, that have multiple chains that have to, meet the same type of standards, the same type of principles, and all of that. So that's the real difference between quote unquote corporate and just a regular job. Nothing better than the other, but that's just kind of the definition. And I did do a little bit of research. Everybody loves research. I just looked at like the top quote unquote corporate companies to work for. At first I did top jobs, but then I did top companies because I thought that would just be a better conversation. But number one this year was Cisco, according to this article. Number two was Hilton. Number four, Salesforce, which some people may have heard of. 8 was American Express. And then 12, to round out kind of the relevant ones, was Target. So those are just a couple of companies that popped out as the top ones to work at. And then on the job side, just before we get into the conversation, the job side, the low end of corporate companies, quote unquote, that required a bachelor degree. I did look at jobs that required a bachelor degree. But it looks like event planner is on the low end of those type of jobs at about $50K a year, which is, a decade ago, that's a pretty good amount of money, you know what I'm saying? But on the low end, we're looking at $50K a year for event planner. The high end of these standard financial jobs or corporate jobs, I kind of just let that out, but corporate jobs is financial advisor, financial analyst, accountants, budget analysts, any type of financial, position in a big corporation. They're looking at about 90 to 100,000 a year, give or take. So to get into the conversation, I just want to kind of talk about how to get these quote unquote jobs. And of course, just going into that, some of those jobs do require bachelor degrees. Some of them have different qualifications and this and that. But generally, I just want to talk about how to get a corporate job, quote unquote, and then tie that into how do you keep a corporate job? Because getting it ain't nothing if you ain't, you ain't going to keep it. But any thoughts on that? How you get a corporate job, quote unquote, and then how do you keep one? Any thoughts on that conversation?
Definitely. It's funny because I used to think that you had to have a bachelor's, and some companies they do require that, but some companies don't. And I learned that when I actually worked for Grubhub, right? I'm making really good money actually. And I'm sitting next to people most people had bachelors, but I'm also sitting next to people that had no college education at all, but they had some experience in sales specifically because that's what I did. So, in order to get in, interview for it, first of all, or not interview, but apply for it, first of all. And I would say just kind of like, you got to bring value to the table at the end of the day. That's what they care about. Bringing value. What can you do for us is what they want to figure out. And can you do it really, really well? So I've had positions where a job even required a degree and someone got the job without one because he was able to let them know like, hey, I'm a valuable asset. This is what I've done. He actually started a business and ran that for like 5 years and did really well with that, but decided to let it go and wanted to move towards just a regular sales job. So that's my biggest thing. Just add value when you're having that conversation with them.
I like that point to add value. You cannot approach if you really want the job. You can't approach the interview the same as your counterpart. You can't approach the interview the same as somebody else who's interviewing for the job. So one thing I really like you mentioned is the qualifications. There's a huge difference between qualifications and requirements. You know what I'm saying? And even requirements can be, you can kind of work your way around that. Jobs post those things because they have a general idea of the type of person they quote unquote want. But if you go into a job and the person interviewing you absolutely loves you, but you may not be qualified or don't meet the requirements, you don't think that they can get you in there? You know what I'm saying? Just add value.
Yeah, sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, depending on the situation. But hey, you'll be surprised at how many times they can if you give it a shot.
On the real, when it comes to like medical and certain financial jobs, any type of technical job, you may need some type of qualification. But if the job isn't dangerous, you're not handling sensitive information.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can make
Right,
it
right.
at the end of the day. And then an important thing to do, I do this in all my interviews, and I hope I never have to like traditionally interview again. We'll get into that too. But any interview I did, bro, and I take this to heart, I was truly interviewing the job. I'm interviewing the company. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's one of me and there's 1,000 jobs. There's 1,000,000 companies. I'm going into this interview making sure that y'all are a good fit for what I want to do. Make sure that this job is a good fit for my type of persona, personality, lifestyle. Like, so I always interview the job. I never let someone interview me. So we would have like an equal amount of questions.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of how I always approach
I
it.
did the same thing. What's some of the questions you would ask?
You know, it wasn't necessarily, I can't recall specific questions, but I always wanted to feel like I belonged there. So from the moment I walked into an interview, I can remember most recently like Uber Freight, for example, downtown in Chicago. I was very welcomed, you know what I mean? Even by the people who were already working there, they were like happy to see new interviewers. The HR lady that came up and introduced herself, she was very nice, polite, excited to see new people. That sort of thing. It's more of a vibe to me. Like, I don't really care about the minutia, the day-to-day. I've usually already done that type of research prior to going in, but I'm just trying to see, is this a good fit for my personality and your company standards at the end of the
That's
day?
a good point. I will add something that I usually ask two questions. I mean, my role specifically was usually in sales. So sales is a lot of commission, has a lot of commission-based structures and a payment too. So a question I used to always ask is like, hey, tell me about your top 5, top 10% of performers. How much money do they make? I didn't care how much money the average person made because I wasn't planning on ever being average. But I always wanted to know what the top performers made to see how much money I can make. And then on top of that, I would always ask, okay, so promotional opportunities, what does that look like? What do I have to do and how long will it take me? Like I did care about the vibe, and shout out to Grubhub. They probably have the best vibe as far as a corporation I ever worked with. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to get paid, and I made it clear up front that this is what I'm looking for. So how do we make it happen?
For sure. Much respect to that. Now, I was going to frame this question, and we mentioned the names, though. I think it'll help people.
Yeah, I think it helps.
Would you work for the Green Machine again? Would you work for Enterprise again? The overall general question.
Would I work with them again? At this point, because of what I'm doing, no. But I will say this: if I was still if I didn't own my own business, if I was still an employee, I would strongly consider going back because I learned so much there. But after I left and the different positions I had after that, I learned way more after that too. So I feel like if I took what I did learn in Enterprise, what I learned afterwards, and went back, I would kill it. And honestly, I would be way better than I was back then. And then the promotion opportunity that you have within that company is tremendous. So it's like the sky would be the limit for me. You know what I mean? So
this is true.
What about you?
I'll second that. It is all up to you. It's all up to you in that company as far as your promotions. You know what I mean? If you're doing what you need to do, you there every day, you're going to get promoted. But I have a similar answer. I wouldn't go back currently, but I definitely don't regret being there at the time I was. They're a corporate company, so no, you don't always agree with their methods and what they do and how they approach, disasters or cold weather. quick story. We was open. We was open at a rental branch. It was negative 60 degrees in Chicago. Like, this was 2 years ago. I don't know if you remember that winter, but it was negative 60 degrees and we were still open. I told them the day before I was not coming. It didn't make sense. It wasn't logical to me. It wasn't safe. Told them I wasn't coming. The day after I didn't show up, my manager said it was a no call, no show. And I'm like, bro, I told you I wasn't coming. I wasn't joking, but you know what I'm saying? That's the type of little things you got to deal with in corporate.
Gotta maneuver.
You feel me? You got to handle those situations right. But I would do it over again just because of the person I was going into that company and coming out. I look at it like job military or something. You know what I'm saying? Definitely grew from it. And then to get in kind of the difference. Of course, right now everybody talking entrepreneurship, business ownership, you know, it's really trendy right now, you know, but a lot of people that talk about it are not really willing to put in the work. So let's look at the 9 to 5 from a straight advantages and disadvantages perspective. Is a 9 to 5 job bad? You know what I'm saying? Why is everybody so hype on entrepreneurship? What's so bad about a 9 to 5? What are some of the advantages and disadvantages that you can throw out there?
Big advantage is the fact that, hey, you're going to get paid at the end of the day. When you're a business owner, sometimes you don't get paid. You know, so your paycheck is definitely guaranteed. A lot of times if you're working for a larger company, the benefits that come with it are phenomenal. As an entrepreneur, you got to pay for your own benefits. Stability, promotion opportunities, like all that stuff, but big advantages. Disadvantage to me, which is what's super major to me, is really just time. You know, you have to be there. People are like, dude, you have to be here from this time to this time. Your lunch break is X amount of time. Like, it really does place a lot of rules and restrictions on your life that I really don't like to have myself, because I'm not really a rules guy. But to me, that's like the biggest thing. But income, you can definitely make a lot of money. You're going to get taxed when you make more money, but you can definitely make a lot of money working for someone else. But you got to sacrifice the time and really having to be present every day. That's the biggest downfall, if you ask me.
For sure. I would say advantages, definitely the pay. You know, having a guaranteed 2-week paycheck is awesome. That's great. You know, of course, it could be like comforting too much to a point where you get, you know, super comfortable. You won't move at all. But, you know, who wouldn't want to get paid every 2 weeks, guaranteed? Disadvantage is definitely the time aspect. I'm the same way. I don't want to be pinned up, put in a box for X amount of time all the time. But hey, one thing I did do in jobs, like, and it's gonna sound like cap to some people. It might sound like cap, but I truly felt this way going into a job, bro. And I got in an argument. Y'all heard, if y'all listening, y'all might have heard Real Nonsense. We had this conversation similarly. I never went to a job to get paid, bro. Like, that's obvious. If I'm going into your place of work, I'm going to get paid. If I'm at any type of establishment, I'm going to be a top performer. So money's going to come to me. Anytime I went to a job, I legitimately went to learn. I wanted to learn the system. So I would consider that an advantage of working a corporate job, especially in a good company, is you get to learn. Like, I don't know why people, you know, you go to school to learn, you read books to learn, you do this. I went to work to learn. Like, the way I saw it, I always worked for good jobs, good companies that I could take from. Straight up, I wanted to learn what systems they were using, how they were communicating, how they did sales, how they were organized from the corporate level. And I wanted to bring that to my own company one day. So that's the real, like, meat and advantage that I took from Enterprise and any other job that I worked. I simply learned their system and took what I could from it, and now I'm trying to apply that to, or I'm actively applying. We don't use try no more.
Right.
But I'm actively applying that to my own business. So that's the advantage I saw there.
That's huge. And I'll say this, like, if you go in and you really focused on, even I wasn't focused on just learning itself, but I was focused on being a top performer. When you were a top performer, you keep getting bumped up higher and higher and higher and higher. And then as you continue to get bumped up, you have no choice but to learn, because they talk to you about more and they expose you to more information. It's just going to happen naturally. So you take that information, and if you want to go into entrepreneurship, you can do that. Or if you want to just keep learning and keep getting bumped up and keep killing the game, you can do that. You can take that route too. But essentially, the better you perform, the more options you have for yourself too. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And I think it's important to realize you got to find a motivator outside of money that's really going to bring intrinsic value to money anyway. Like, you know what I'm saying? You were motivated by being a top performer. I was motivated by seeking knowledge and growth. But in turn, they both paid really well
Right.
because you were a valuable piece to the company
Right.
at the end of the day. And we kind of already got into it. Any more key differences you want to highlight between entrepreneurship and working a 9 to 5?
Man,
I'm trying to
I
kind of
would
think of a
say
couple,
another
but there's so
Yeah, I
many.
would say another thing is just the risk behind it all. I mean, that's huge. Like, if you really doing this thing the way you should be doing it, like reinvesting back into the business is huge. So, especially when you first starting off, like this thing doesn't, people don't become millionaires overnight, right? So, at the very beginning, I would say first 4 or 5 years, you're probably going to be broke if you're doing it right. Like you make a little bit of money, you're like, all right, cool. Let me spend it on more marketing. Cool. Let me spend that. Let me hire another employee. Until you're building this thing. It's like building a house. You got to build this strong foundation. In order to do that, you're not taking vacations all the time. You're not, taking days off all the time. You're putting whatever time and resources you have back into the business to make it the business that's going to support you and your family financially for the rest of your life. So that in itself right there is for me one of the biggest differences. Like you can make so much money every single month, but that's just revenue. That's just revenue. What are you going to net?
Yeah.
At the very beginning, it's not going to be much if you're doing it right. So I would say that's the biggest thing
Man,
to start off with.
that's major. And I'll speak on that to wrap it up. Moment of transparency. My first year as a full entrepreneur, I was definitely on the road, bro. I was traveling, seeing stuff, but I had so much time on my hands and I was making a little more than what I was used to even making back in the corporate world. So I didn't know what to do with myself. That's why the morning routine we talked about, me having mental health days every Tuesday, I literally had to figure out some type of schedule, process, routine, so I wasn't just going with the wind every day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Discipline is
I was like
huge.
that for like a month. I found myself, I got this place to a point where I didn't have to do much, and I'm hoping to get back pretty soon to that place. But you got to have discipline because once you get it to that point, it's like you have this time. What do you do? I was doing dumb stuff. I went and bought an $800 speaker for my house. I went and like, and then I had to realize, I'm like, dude, chill. Like, you have this time. What are we going to do with it? Like, think about it. Be more strategic. Like, plan for the future. Figure things out and come up with a routine so it holds yourself accountable. So you're not doing dumb stuff. You don't have a boss. You don't have someone telling you don't do this or don't do that. You can do whatever you want to do, but you got to be careful with that type of power and that type of freedom at the same time.
That's the word right there, power. Because, man, if you don't control it, it's going to control you.
Right.
That's on the real. But yeah, man, got into corporate America today. Kept it culture, keep it real quick. We gonna keep these conversations going though, man. Once again, if y'all know us personally, if y'all got us on social media, y'all want to see any specific conversations, hit us up. We'd love to deliver that to you. But we'll catch y'all on the next one. This concludes another edition of Bro2Bro with J. Clark Real Mindset. Peace.